I'm Daniel Curtis, and this is Let's Talk Creativity. I want to open a conversation. We don't often stop to question how school works or who it's really working for. Let me tell you something you might not know. Schools and prisons were designed in the same era, with the same thinking and same purpose in mind: to organize and supervise large groups of people efficiently. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. They were never designed for creativity. And I want to say straight off the bat here, I'm not saying that schools are evil. I'm not condemning the very buildings that we went to school in and our children go to school in. I'm not doing that. What I am saying is that if we want to move forward, we have to be honest about where these systems came from. I want you to think back to your own school days. Think about the hallway, long corridors, classrooms either side, the bell that goes off and tells you it's time to move. You are supervised as you walk to where you need to be. You are all in uniform, standardized, easily recognizable, part of an ordered system. Then think about the canteen, the queues, the trays, walking up to collect your food and sitting down on long tables. This is an environment that feels far more institutional than personal. And then you're placed in a classroom. If you wish to leave that classroom to use the toilet, for example, you've got to put your hand up. And in some schools, I know you are truly not allowed to go to the toilet unless you have essentially written permission or the teacher believes you are probably about to wet yourself there and then. That is what you are told to abide by. Basically, when a child leaves a classroom, they are unsupervised and no longer in the control of the person who has been designated to keep them safe, to keep them kind of in line with the school rules. They are unsupervised and out there doing whatever. And that's the real reason. It's not that teachers are trying to stop people going to the toilet. They have been told to keep the children inside so that basically everyone is accounted for. Everyone is learning, hopefully, but also everybody is safe. There is nothing going on untoward. The other teachers who are not teaching do not have to come out of their kind of PPA time in order to try and hunt children down. The senior leadership team are not called out of meetings or doing paperwork or whatever in order to deal with things that shouldn't be happening because those children should be in class. Punishment has always existed in schools. When you think about the cane, people received that for speaking out of turn or doing something that was deemed inappropriate to the environment that they were in, which was very regimental. This was not a place where you had free will, where you had the ability to be creative. Now, punishment may not exist in the form of a cane anymore, but we certainly have detentions. We certainly have people missing trips, missing things that they want to do. We certainly have people staying in at break time, lunchtime, perhaps after school detention, or being sent home on some kind of exclusion, maybe even a permanent exclusion. There are many schools that have CCTV within them. And CCTV is there for a number of reasons. Number one, to protect the other students, but also the teachers. There are a lot of allegations that go on these days, and it is a very uncomfortable thing to have to talk about. But a lot of allegations are made. And I know some incredible teachers whose careers have been saved. They probably would not be teaching today if that CCTV did not exist, due to the allegations that were made against them and were able to be proved completely false by having CCTV. But teachers are working under this condition where they are being watched. but also the students are being watched. Can you think of any situation where you want to be creative in that moment, knowing that somebody is watching you? And yes, this footage should only really be used when something happens that needs looking at. It should not be used to punish teachers for not teaching in a certain way or punish students for not working. It should not be used for that. It should be used as a form of protection. But CCTV came into play when the Nazi Party were trying to basically monitor weapons testing. That's the root of CCTV. And this is something that we spend our lives amongst when we walk into town, into a city centre, into a shop business, and now a school. Something that was created with evil intent, and we use it on a day-to-day basis like it's normal. And really what I'm trying to do with this series is to ask questions. It's not to say something is absolutely wrong, but more to say, have we thought about where this came from? Is it necessary? Do we need it now? And the answer could be yes. But we are right to ask the question. Creativity is not a luxury item, and it certainly does not arrive through policy documents. It comes from people and environments, space. My Hungarian is not the best, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi identified something called flow. We've all heard these terms. They're in the zone. They're in flow. They're in their element, their environment. So many different ways of saying the same thing. But ultimately, you're losing track of time. You are so invested in what you're doing that time itself no longer really exists. You are focused. Your full imagination, your creative powers, everything within you is being poured, heart and soul, into the piece of work or activity that you are doing. And I think that's where we do our best work. Now, in schools, so much happens that stops this. When you think about it, lessons generally, even in primary school, normally have a cap on them. Let's say 1 hour. In comprehensive school, it's even less than that, because by the time a child's walked from one class to another, sat down, got their stuff out, dilly-dallied a little bit perhaps, there is 10 minutes of the lesson gone. Perhaps another 5 at the end for packing away. And this is not the teacher's fault. This is a system. This is the way it works. It's the way that it's always worked. But we're losing perhaps 15 minutes every single lesson in comprehensive school. And that's an awful lot of time. Flow takes 10 to 15 minutes to actually get into. So by the time you actually get working, your chance of working in flow is being rapidly decreased. I remember being in a lesson not too long ago, and we were drawing a dragon eye. Now, this piece of work was great because for once we had a massive amount of time, 2 hours to complete this task. Some children embrace challenges like this. Others, though, perhaps quite understandably, if they're not really loving art within their life at this moment in time, can be like, oh wow, what on earth am I going to do? I'm hopeless at this, I'm rubbish at this. Let's do a quick job and hope that's enough. Well, this wasn't that lesson. They had to draw the dragon eye, put a lot of extra detail around the dragon eye itself, label it, and use a number of different colors in order to make the best dragon eye they possibly could. I was not expecting people to suddenly start loving art, but I needed them to commit to this as they would any other lesson, like maths. We're all kind of stuck with it, whether you like it or hate it. And the only way that you get better and perhaps find any kind of affinity with it is if you do it. And I had a lot of children come up and say, I'm done, thinking perhaps I might send them off for some free time. But I sent them away again and said, I need you to go back now and add more detail, to label things, to do the absolute best that you can with the time that we've got, which was another hour and 45 minutes. And when I was in school, I would have been that kid, 100% coming up, going, I've done it, I've done my best I can do. But when I walked past these children later on, they were really focused and almost like comatose. I couldn't, I'd call one of their names and there was no response. They were so intrinsically thinking about this piece of work, and it was incredible to see. That was actually the success. That was better than anything. And the amount of children who come to me on a daily basis when I'm teaching and say, can I finish this piece of work? And the truth is, the allotted time for that piece of work is probably gone. Perhaps it can be returned to at a later date. But we are stopping children when they are entering flow, when they care passionately enough to come and ask to continue with a piece of work. We should be applauding that. But the day is so condensed, it's so full, that we struggle to allow children enough time to be creative. Schools have an interruption problem designed into the system. Children do not have a focus problem. It is something that is a massive misconception. We just do not allow children the environment, time, and space to be creative, to be innovative, imaginative. And I believe that's the greatest gift that we can give to any child, is the space to do that, to be themselves, to explore and create with their peers. That's a wonderful thing. I do not believe necessarily that a teacher can teach creativity, but I believe a teacher can provide the space, time to be creative, to essentially allow creativity to blossom and flourish, to take away the distractions that prohibit creativity. I want to be clear. There are incredible head teachers out there and schools which are run magnificently within the constraints that they have. They have from the education authorities, from the government itself. But they are doing their absolute best with everything that they have to provide children with the best education possible. There are incredible teachers out there who embody everything I've spoken about. And there are countless teachers who used to embody these things that I'm talking about and no longer do because of the constraints and their creativity being almost sucked out of them by this system. I am not blaming any teacher or head teacher for doing the best that they can do. School for me was this oppressive place. I hated it. It was awful. I daydreamed, looked out the window. I didn't know what was going on half the time. I definitely didn't want to be there. I was plotting, playing tennis after school, playing snooker, doing anything that was not being stuck inside these classrooms. I just felt imprisoned. That was my own feeling back then in school. I didn't have the terminology for it, but it's certainly how I felt. I didn't feel school understood me. I didn't feel like the teachers really cared about who I was. As a professional musician and composer, I remember being in music class and being told the music was not for me because I wasn't following the structure that the teacher was. It was a composition type lesson, and yes, they were supposed to do something in a particular way, and I didn't. So I was deemed to be completely wrong. I was just playing around, improvising, kind of daydreaming, doing what I kind of do, and I was told music's not for me. Well, I found my career in music, and I'm very proud of some of the things that I achieved, but I would not have done if I'd have listened to that teacher. And we have to be careful with that, about telling children what they can or cannot do. On that occasion, that teacher did not help me. And perhaps they were just that frustrated that I wasn't doing what everybody else probably was doing, that, yes, that was what words come to their head. I don't blame them for that. But I do think, we don't need to be telling children what they can't do. in life. I don't think that's helpful in any way, shape, or form. I was not a terrible, terrible student. I wasn't like rude or cheeky, but I was just disengaged. My head was in the shed. My head was elsewhere. I was just getting through things. And that's not what we want children to do. We don't need children to just get through the day like it's some form of punishment. At the end of the day, this time is protected. When children are in school, we are able to give them this incredible space to get away from devices, to get away from these things that cause all of this distraction in the real world. Teachers are incredible people. They work very, very hard. A lot of them, though, have lost their spark, their will, really, to live within the constraints of this system. It pushes so many wonderful teachers out of the teaching profession. And there is always someone behind them to take their place. But we're losing incredible teachers. We're losing wonderful experience because of the time constraints and the pressure that is placed upon them to live and breathe within the system with which they work. When I was teacher training, I was allowed to look at another teacher's kind of file that they had created when they were doing their PGCE. And it was astonishing. The work and detail that had gone into it was mind-blowing. It was way above the level of which I was operating at that moment in time. And I remember saying to them, this is incredible. And the teacher standing before me was someone who was not inspired anymore, not creative anymore. They were stuck in a routine and just going through the motions. And they said to me these particular words, and they haunt me to this day. Yeah, I used to be that person. I used to be that person. I'm not anymore. Isn't that unbelievable? That someone so engaged in wanting to help children has lost their entire passion for it. And this is going to continue to happen. Teachers are compressed. They have to work under almost robotic conditions. You will be available to teach this lesson at this time. You will be in this place. You have this amount of time to plan what you're going to teach. You have this amount of time to mark. And if you don't, then you'll have to take it home. You have to work on weekends and school holidays. And, it's relentless. You know the amount of work that you have to do to basically not be an alien, to not be an anomaly, to not be the pain, the one that's not pulling their weight, the one that becomes scrutinized because you're not operating to the same kind of standard that the powers that be have deemed to be what that school will facilitate across all of their teachers. And that comes from higher than them. The way they were taught, the way that they're told that the system has to work. I remember doing some research on this, and a teacher told me they were so scared of having their card marked and having repercussions for speaking up that they no longer did. They tried to be the quiet, reserved voice in the room, someone who caused no trouble for the senior leadership team. It's easy to build resentment towards those who appear to be in power, but most of the people holding schools together are not the architects of the system. They're the custodians of it. Time and trust does not come from one place alone. Some of it is shaped by the system, some of it by the leadership inside schools, but all of it is shaped by pressure. But if we want teachers to do their best work, we need to give them back time. We need to give them trust. And then the permission to be creative themselves. And I believe teachers care deeply, and I believe they always have. The future of education will not be saved by shinier buildings or tougher systems. It will be saved because of teachers' sparks being harnessed, by teachers being trusted to do their job and do it well, by being given greater autonomy, and in turn, providing children with the environment to be creative and innovative, to use their imaginations and to shape the future for all of us. I look forward to the next episode, but for now, I wish everybody the very, very best. Take care.